Welcome to the All Access Entertainment Podcast. I am your host, Joseph Bruen. Very excited about this week's guest, a very special guest here, the man who laid down the law in World Wrestling Entertainment for many, many years, even back way World Wrestling Federation days. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, the great Jimmy Tillis. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much, Joe. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. Appreciate you being here. And I think the fans are really going to enjoy this and kind of get a behind the scenes point of view of somebody who's been with the company for so long. You were there for so many years and you've experienced so much around the world, literally. So really looking forward to this chat.
Yeah. Well, it was probably one of the greatest opportunities I ever had. Coming from a small town in Millburn, New Jersey. And one day I wound up in doing security in nightclubs. I met a gentleman by the name of Gerard Massioli at my 25th birthday party. And I was already bouncing at places like the Dirt Club, which produced the Smithereens and had a lot of heavy metal rock bands come through there. And it was literally a house. And it was me and a gentleman by the name of Gary Tominski that worked there. But we had other guys, the sound check guy and the DJ. They would also do security for us. And that went from $25 a night to the WWE. But at the Dirt Club, I also met my wife. She's my ex-wife now, but we're still good friends, very good friends. We've got 2 boys and a grandson, and we just love up on him. I mean, he just requires so much, and it's so good to just hold him and, see that. One day, Gerard and I sat down, and he says, I'm going to start a security company, and we're going to do New York City nightclubs. And I said, okay, great. That sounds good, man. You let me know when you need me, and I'd be more than happy to come in. And in the back of my head, I'm like, New York City, are you ready for something like that, Jim? I was still a young kid, and I just gotten married, didn't know what I wanted to do, and things of that nature. And one day, Gerard calls me up, and he goes, I need you to go to a club on 54th and 8th Avenue. I said, okay, what's the name of the club? He said, Studio 54. This was our break-in club. I was like, Studio 54? Wow, okay. Dressed in all black huge leather jacket all the way down past my knees and turtleneck and, my necklace on the outside and my big watch, and pull up and they tell me where to go park. I walked in. And when I opened the doors, it was like opening the doors to the legends of bouncing. I mean, when I tell you, there was everybody there. Everybody that you heard a story about in New Jersey and things of that nature were in this place. You had guys like Panama and Doc and Rico and Karate Pete. And it was just amazing. And I walked in and I didn't want my chin to drop. But these were guys that, were legends, and that's when it was called bouncing. You didn't have, nobody had a camera on their phone or anything of that nature. And they took pride in that. And there were about 125 guys in there. This place held about 5,000 people. I'm sure you've heard about Studio 54.
Yeah.
And this is the early 90s. And it was amazing. And when I walked in, one of the guys asked me, goes, are you Gerard's guy? I was like, yeah, I'm Gerard's guy. Oh, okay, good. And from that moment on, it was like Gerard had me in this place and everybody knew Gerard, and they gave me the same type of respect that they would Gerard. Well, that went on for a couple of months, and then we did our first hip hop show at a place that used to be called Bacchus.
Okay.
And at the time, it was they changed the name to the Arena. And Gerard called me up and he said, Jimmy, I need about 40 guys. I said, okay. So I would call up two guys here and say, can you bring me 5 or 6 guys, two guys here, till we had 40 guys. And we walked into this place. And when I tell you, we had every major celebrity, some of them had gone on, and it was just amazing. And from that is how mass security expanded into what was the premier nightclub security business in the 90s. We went from security um, clubs would call us and say, hey, we're going to do a rap night. Hey, we're going to do a hip hop night. And before you knew it, we went from one, two clubs, a couple of commercial spots, to we had over 70% of the major nightclubs in New York City.
Wow.
And that's what started it. And I was Gerard's number one hire. So everything went through me before Gerard heard it. And then we would make a decision on what we were going to do and go from there. And that's how we got in contact with then the WWF.
Ah. Now,
Yeah.
all you guys are very confident at this point, obviously, in working for this company. Were there ever moments where even you were like, wow, you're a little nervous, like, that something could go down here?
Every night,
Okay.
every single night, But the bottom line was, although we had all these legends because we were occupying the space of all these major nightclubs. I'm talking about the Roxy, Studio 54, Roseland, um, Octagon, Red Parrot, Exit. Uh, we had anywhere from 80 to 125 guys working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We worked 6 days a week, even at the smaller nights, because it was the smaller nights, and and other guys had other obligations and whatnot. But guys would call me on Monday morning. Hey Jim, got any work? Hey Jim, anything happening? And I couldn't even get up because I had been out all night Sunday night.
Right.
I spent a good 10 years without seeing sunlight. I went out when the sun came down, and I was back home in bed when the sun
Wow.
came up. Yeah,
It's impressive.
but it was every night because back then, everybody, was, you get the different types of people, and everybody was like, wanted their own space, and it was one of those things where you had to be careful, but you couldn't let anybody take advantage of you.
Right.
That was the whole thing. And I would always stress to the guys, we're not a gang. Okay.
Yeah.
When we move as one. And that's how we always did things because of the mere fact that we didn't treat it like a gang. We didn't try and, beat the hell out of you. We just wanted peace in the club. There were certain clubs we would fight every night, every single night. Uh,
Wow.
I don't want to give the names because I don't want to get in any trouble. But before the club would open, lines would be down the street and around the corner, and there would be 4 or 5 fist fights, big fights, bottles, and the whole 9 yards. And then the club would open at like 12, 1 o'clock, go to 6 o'clock in the morning. But it was every night.
And you walked us to that moment where, you connected with the World Wrestling Federation. Why don't you kind of walk us into that now? How did you first get involved with them?
Well, one night, it wasn't even a night. We had an office in Belleville, New Jersey, and the lady that was the office manager, she's still there now. Her name is
Wow.
Patricia. Nobody messes with Patricia. She's like the boss. Gerard, me, we had nothing to say. If Patricia said no, it was no because I'm not arguing with her. Gerard wasn't arguing with her.
Right.
She handled all the guys, and she did not give a hoot what your name was or anything. She made sure that everybody got paid and the whole 9 yards. Well, phone call comes in, and I just walked in, and she goes, "Hold on, Jimmy, some companies on the phone called WWF. Have you ever heard of it? I said, no, no. She said, they're a wrestling company. I said, oh, okay. What do they want? They said they're opening up a place in Midtown Manhattan, and they wanted us to send somebody over to, you know, give them a quote. I said, okay, well, what we'll do is we'll send, I forget who I sent over. And she said, okay, well, we're going to send somebody over. Nobody came over. Next morning, guy called. No, it was a girl. Her name was Kim. She was Kenton Jenkins's assistant, and Kenton Jenkins was the vice president at that time in charge of. Uh, I think we called it the World. It
Okay.
was 10,000 square foot merchandise, and underneath was a nightclub. Basically, they had dinner, the whole 9 yards, and the boys would come down, sign autographs every pay per view, whatnot, whoever wasn't on the pay per view. So I said, okay, I'll go. I said, but I don't do commercial, because I'm in charge of all these clubs.
Yeah.
And when Gerard wanted to know what was going on, I had to give him an answer. So I went down. I met with Kenton Jenkins. I met with Kim. And they come back the next morning. They said, okay, well, every company that was worth anything in New York City has applied, but we're going to we're going to give you all the contract as long as Jimmy Tillis runs the security. And I told her no. I told Patricia, I said, Patricia, I'm not running. I got this club, this club. She goes, Jimmy, it can be a big contract. I said, how's it going to be a big contract? It's 2 nights a week. That's not big. You're going to take me from this, that, and the other. And so they, she talked me into it because, I don't argue with Patricia, but for so long. So at this point in time, I was at Windows on the World. I was running Windows on the World. Uh, and I gave the head of security job to another friend of mine who was never late, always on time. And I gave him the head of security job at Windows on the World. And I went and took uh, the World. And so when I took the World, uh, I began to, what it was, we would have it on Saturdays and Sundays, but we would have security in where the merchandise was every day.
Okay.
So we had security in the merchandise every day, and then they come to Gerard and they said, Gerard, what we'd like to do is we would like to do a nightclub. And Gerard comes to me and he says, "You want to do a nightclub here?" I was like, "That's really going to take up some time because on Sunday mornings we were." Hold on one second.
Yeah.
you know, there you go. On Sunday mornings, sorry about that.
That's all right.
On Sunday mornings, we had to get up because the boys were coming down to sign autographs. So we did Saturday. I'm sorry, we did Friday and Saturday. We turned downstairs a restaurant into this huge nightclub that would hold 10,000 people.
Wow.
They gave us the permit to have 5,000 people in. Our opening night, oh gosh, I think we had Pamela Anderson, her boyfriend. Uh, we had every celebrity in New York City, every single one. Um, Paris Hilton and her sister and Susan Sarandon. Now they we couldn't say no to them because they owned the building. they
Right.
they were young, but they owned the building, and I didn't want to get into it. But this is back in mid to late '90s, so we get it done, and a lot of the boys came down for the grand opening, and I met a young lady by the name of Anne Russo Gordon.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Ann and I hit it off like that. It was like, whatever she said, it was like one of those things that, she knew what she was doing. She knew how to get the talent down there. And all she depended on me and my guys were to make sure that the guys were safe. And when I tell you, I had other legends down there as well. Jimmy V, oh God, Todd Harris, uh, Barlow Taylor. And when I tell you, these guys, not only were they legends or about to be legends in this business, and that's hard to say because New York City had so many bouncers, but these are the guys that could walk into any nightclub and somebody go, I know that guy, you know? And those are the guys that we had. And those are the guys that we attracted. Jimmy D'Angelo, um, gosh, who else? Oh, God, I met Jimmy Vanetti, just, but anyway. Um, and one day, after we'd had a little bit of an altercation on a Saturday night. And after the altercation, club closed a little bit earlier than it would normally. That morning, Ann Russo calls me on a Sunday morning. And she says, Jimmy? I said, hey, Ann, what's going on? She goes, I need you to, and I quote, have your ass up here 10 o'clock. That's my grandson. He goes, I need to have your ass up here 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. I said, Ann, if you're going to fire me down. I said, because I'm not coming up to Stanford for you to fire me in a suit. That's ridiculous. She goes, I don't know what you're talking about. Have your ass up here. I was like, okay. I go up there. I'm there. I try to always be early. I'm sitting in the lobby. It's about a quarter to 10. I said, how you done? Yeah, Jimmy Tillis. Oh, Mr. Tillis. Oh, yes. Follow us. And get on the elevator. And I think it was the third floor, big conference room. I go into this conference room. There's, oh gosh, Jim Ross, Ann Russo Gordon, Liz DeFabio, um, Sue Aitchison. Um, I believe Mrs. McMahon was there. I'm not sure. And they start going through the questions. Okay, well, what do you do? And I don't like it. I don't fly. I run the nightclubs for mass security. Well, we were told by some of the boys that they like the way you do things, and we would like to have you out on the road. And it's time that we got some legitimate security. Now, mind you, they'd had security for certain guys. You had Jim Dotson was there. I think he was there for like Triple H and things of that nature. And then you had a New York City police officer that was there for The Rock from time to time. They said we want legitimate security. I said, okay, well, that's us. I said, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a team around you. They were like, no, this team's got to be able to travel. And I was like, what do you mean travel? They said, every show. I said, okay, there's only two shows. No, 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 no. We got house shows and we got this. And I'm sitting there, I was like, well, I don't fly. And Jim Ross looks at me and he goes, are you sure, Mr. Tillis? And I said, flying is, He goes, well, this is what we'd like to do. And I looked at him and I looked around the room and Ann Russo, she's sitting there. She's like, would you just take the contract? Stop being a dumbass. She's laying it. I was like, okay, sign it. And I said, now what is it that I have to do? And uh, Jim, JR was like, no fan gets in that ring. I don't care what you have to do. No fan jumps that rail and gets into that ring. I was like, okay. I said, that's not a problem. He goes, well, make sure you have some backup because you're going to get tired of this, or you're not going to want to go this place or that place or whatnot. Well, I don't know. 11 plus years later, it was. I never got tired of it. It was like home. The boys were some of the greatest people that you know I ever met. I still keep in contact with Taker and Devon and oh gosh, Shane. I ran into Shane Helmsley on Facebook because I stopped being so secluded now that I'm not doing it anymore. I'm on Facebook now, and I think that's how you met me. And Taker and I, his birthday's coming up in a couple of days, and I'll send him a happy birthday, and he sends me one, and um, oh gosh, who else? Oh gosh, Shelton Benjamin. I haven't talked to MVP in a long while, but there's still that closeness. And um, let me jump forward. Oh gosh, 4 years ago, I had uh, I had a major stroke, a major heart attack, where I went into a coma for 3 weeks. Um, I they were telling my family to get the family together because I wasn't going to make it through the night and things of that nature. And eventually, I had to have a heart transplant,
Wow.
and I had the heart transplant. It'll be 4 years on April the 22nd. It'll be 4 years. And I went from 265 pounds to 142 pounds at that time in the hospital. And Taker, Kurt Angle, Kofi Kingston, oh gosh, Todd Harris, Jimmy Noonan, and a bunch of the other boys, and their names escape me, but they all sent me a video, and it was really, you know, it was something. It really was, because you know at that point in time, between them and I had friends of mine that I've been friends with since, oh my God, since seventh grade. And we used to always call ourselves Vince's Gang. And we were, our senior year, we were 0-8-1 on the football field, but it was an 0-8-1 that brought us together as a family, because to this day, that's what we talk about. How did we lose this game? How did we, you know? And they flew in from Florida, California, North Carolina. Oh gosh, oh God, Billy Ty, Bob Janis, Mark Goddard, Scott Lentz. Scott was like my coach. Chuck Albanese. You know, they would call me every day, and when one group wasn't there, the next day another group of guys would come in, and Teddy Stampoulis has probably turned into one of the biggest comedians I've ever seen. He had me laughing so hard the doctor had to come in and throw him out, because I was cracking up so hard it was hurting my chest, because
Oh,
oh yeah,
what a
but
great feeling that must be to have that much support, you know?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I had oh gosh, one of my best friends, Orlando Proenza. He came in, and when I came out of the coma, my cousins were there, Kenya and Andre. They were out, and this was during COVID. You know, my heart, lungs, and kidneys, liver, everything stopped. Lungs collapsed. Um, I was dead, and yeah, and I sit back, and I tell people, I try and tell one person this story, a day, just to let them know that, not I am not as strong as I used to be, but faith wise, I'm stronger than I ever was, because of the mere fact that what he did for me is not because I was so good or great at, going to church and everything, as I wasn't. He did it for me because he made me an example of what he can do for me. He can do for anybody, and that's the whole thing with that. And but anyway, that was you know uh, the guys were just fantastic, and even to this day, when people see me, because that was one of the trips I made. I came out of the hospital, and I went to a show where a lot of the guys were and whatnot, and they were like, "Oh man," we joked, and then Todd was like, "You tired?" I was like, "Yeah, I can't stay," and he got me out of there.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Now, having a second chance at life like this, and with that behind you now, how are you feeling now?
I feel great. I feel great. Can't do what I used to do. Like I said, um, I got into the trucking business, and I go up and down the road. Me sitting still. You got to remember, I was in the hospital for almost 6 months in intensive care. Probably a little bit less. I had the heart attack on December the 26th, 2021. I had open heart surgery. I had the heart transplant on April 22nd, 2022. And then I was in bed for like 2 or 3 months where I would get up and walk. My ex-wife, she came over and she would look at me. My sons would come over. My one son lives in California. He flew in to make sure that I didn't die. My other son, he was a police officer in Newark. Now he does security. Right now he's doing a movie. He does, and my sisters, they were on it constantly, and my mother, uh, God rest her soul, um, she told her doctor that she was going to stay until I was back on my feet, and she left me in October, and I'm getting it. I got back on my feet just like she prayed for.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's looking out for you, and
Oh yeah,
it's great feeling for
yeah.
sure. So glad you're still with us and able
Oh
to
yeah,
share these stories, and it's something that people can look up to and really admire, all that you've been through, and the success you've had, and now you have, like I said, another chance at life. So this is great.
yeah, yeah. And it feels great too. Like I said, I can't do what I used to do, but it's amazing. It
Yeah.
really is. You know.
So you mentioned Jimmy Noonan. How did you first connect with Jimmy? When did he join your company?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Jimmy is part of the Jimmies. There was Jimmy Noonan, Jimmy D'Angelo, um, Jimmy Velasquez. Uh, then there's Kerry Bethel, Bobby Blue, Todd Harris, a couple other guys.
Yep.
You know, but what happened with Jimmy? Jimmy came to the world one day, and he was looking to get into doing security. And somebody somebody told me, because at the world I had my own office, because
Right.
not only was I handling the security for the world, but six other clubs. So I'm putting and making sure that everybody get paid. And so I told him, I said, just have Jimmy, at a bar. So when they told me where Jimmy was, Jimmy describes it probably the funniest. Jimmy said that the club was packed. About 5,000 people were in the club. And he said that I looked like Moses parting the Red Sea, because I had security on both sides of me and Jimmy V in front of me. And they didn't allow anybody to get near me. And Jimmy said, "This has got to be Tillis." And that was it. And that's how we met, you know?
Wow.
Yeah. And he was a good man. He was a good man, and we had fun together. When all this stuff happened on the road, like we had a whole crew. I was booking guys to go here, there, and something happened. Some of the guys thought that they could do it better.
Right.
Some of the guys were trying to get in other people's ears. Oh, I could do it this way, and I could. Well, it got back to by this time now we were getting transferred over to legal department. So no longer were we with the talent department; we were with the legal department. And a gentleman by the name of Rich Herring was in charge of the legal department. And I guess we had to start. I had to start answering to him, and he just came in and he let us all go. He just fired us all. So that evening, he called me up and he says, "Okay, I fired everybody." He goes, "But I'm going to keep you and uh, Jimmy Noonan." I was like, "Okay." He goes, "Everything still goes through you, but this is how we're going to run it from now on. Too many this, that, and the others." And I was like, "Okay." I had nothing to do with it. Everybody said, "Oh, I." I had nothing to do with it. I felt like people were, doing things uh, advantageously, for their own benefit. And I said, and I'm not the type of guy. I could always back then. I could step away and go right back to security
Yeah.
and in the nightclubs, and that wouldn't have been a problem. So if you look when Trish went into the Hall of Fame, one of the toughest women, one of the toughest people, period, that you'll ever meet. I was at a mat. I saw where her fingernails were ripped off, where she was holding on to the rope, and her fingernails ripped off, and I was like,
Oh man.
she kept on. She kept on. I was like, oh my god.
Didn't even phase me.
Didn't even phase her. I was like, and she actually mentioned it. She goes, "Well, the Jimmys, and I was like, "Yeah, that's us."
Yep.
That's why I said, do the Jimmy.
And when
Yeah.
Jimmy Noonan, how long did he go until with World Wrestling Entertainment?
Jimmy went with World Wrestling on the road up until uh, 2005.
Okay.
About 2005, because then I brought Todd, who is I call him my little brother because Todd was one of the guys that I'd literally put under my wing, and I said, "This is how you do it." I
Right.
said, "You do it this way." And I said, "You go." And to this day, right now, Todd's doing movies. He's doing security for movies. He's doing security for TV shows. He got out of the nightclub because nightclubs, it's a little rough now. You don't want to do that anymore.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. When it comes to the travel, let's talk about the international tours. You were a part of so many international tours over the years, and any stories that come to mind from those trips that you can share, right?
Oh man, uh, I don't know. We had Hornswoggle. Hornswoggle, he was the small person. I want to be correct in saying
Yes. Yeah. Little person. Yeah.
little person. He had he was doing something one night, and the bus had to stop, and we were in England, and we something happened, and he got upset. He was pissed, and he went running after somebody. And when it came for him to jump off the curb, he didn't. He went to take another step and slipped right across, right on his face. And everybody was like, "Oh my god!" It was just, like he was like, "I hate you." I hated everybody. But the best things about being overseas, it was great because when you went overseas, if you went with Raw or SmackDown, if you went with Raw, at the end of the show on Monday night, you packed your bag. Tuesday morning, at the airport, and off you went. A lot of times we would fly over in a private jet. Okay, one of the times we flew over in a private jet. I forget the gentleman's name. He was Australian,
Okay.
and we were in the private jet, beautiful jet, and everybody's playing gin, and they had a bar, and they had food everywhere, and every seat was a first class seat. Well, something happened, and me and Paul Heyman were sitting next to each other, and something happened with the fuel, and we had to make an emergency landing in Siberia
Wow.
during a snowstorm.
Oh.
Talk about bumps and the whole 9 yards. It was really, people were praying. Well, we landed. Military got on the plane and shut the shades. They had driven a snowplow in order for us to land. They shut the shades, they filled us up, and we took off at almost an angle that literally was almost like straight up. Some chairs were broken, but that's how hard we went up into the air. Paul Heyman looks over at me. He says, "When we land, I'm gonna punch Vince right in the face. And I looked at him, I was like, okay. Meanwhile, my heart's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. It's good.
when we landed, the kid that they were promoting, Big Show was on the plane too. The kid that was from Australia got off the plane and quit. Got
Is
off the
that
plane. I
Nathan
think,
Jones?
huh?
Nathan Jones?
Nathan, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And it was like, oh my God. He's like, never again. Then he became an actor.
So he just quit right there. That was it.
Right there.
Wow.
Right there.
Okay.
I was like, wow.
Yeah.
But it was some kind of a plane ride, let me tell you.
Yeah.
All you heard with people doing their Hail Marys and oh yeah.
Now, were
Yeah.
you involved with the plane ride from hell? It's called,
Yes.
where you were there for that.
Which one? This is the one.
Is this the same one? It was
This
referred to as plane ride from hell, and there were all kinds of different things that took place throughout the flight. People's hair getting cut, pranks going on. Kurt
oh,
Hennig and Brock Lesnar kind of giving it a go and just brawling on the plane, and
no, I didn't
guys
hear
have
about
been
this one. No.
okay. Yeah, it's an infamous flight where things got a little. It was an international tour, so they were
uh,
drinking for a while.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That was we had some fun. We
Yeah.
had some fun, and we. Oh gosh, let me think. Oh man, we went to Belfast, and it was my actually. I've been to 49 countries according to my WhatsApp and the whole 9 yards. And when we landed in Belfast, they had their first bomb scare in 10 years when we landed,
Oh my gosh!
and it was a bomb. we
Wow.
there was one. We took a private jet to Johannesburg, South Africa. Rock was on the plane. This was going to be a card, just and we landed. And I'm looking as we're pulling up to the gate. I see the windows were packed. Fans are screaming, going crazy. And a gentleman comes in and goes, "Okay, we're ready to get off the plane." I says, "No, sir, we're not." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Not until you clear those fans." He goes, "The fans are under control." I said, "No, you got a bunch of fans there." I said, "More than I'm accustomed with." I said, "You got to clear that." He goes, "Well, we're not going to do that." I said, "Okay. Then what I'm going to do is we're going to turn around and take this, and we're going to go to Cape Town." I said, "Because I don't feel safe here." He was like, "Hold on." And he came back 10 minutes later. Windows were clear and the whole 9 yards. And he looks at me. He goes, "How's that?" I said, "That's all I asked. And we
Yeah,
got off the plane. You got Rock, Triple H, Batista, Cena. Yeah, you can't do that. Not
didn't
with
have
those
chaos
guys.
when coming off with those guys. No.
Oh, one time we were in, we landed. Oh, where was it? This was the one, Birmingham. We flew in first, and then SmackDown was coming in the next day. And I get off the bus and I'm getting the guys. I'm like, "Okay, guys," and I got the security because we had overseas security. It was excellent as well. And by the way, one of our guys, really really nice guy, Davey Coates, passed away a couple of days ago. And if anybody's watching, my heart condolences to the family. He was a great man, and I really enjoyed him. He always made sure that everything was right because you know I was the one that started to enforce the pipe and drape rule, having
Okay.
security there where fans couldn't just say, "Hey, how you doing? Can I have an autograph?" You know, anything thrown. I got the guys ejected, things of that nature. But we were getting off the bus, and oh gosh, I got everybody. I've got everybody, and I'm getting them on the elevator, and I'm holding one elevator, sending another one up. And one guy goes, "Hey, excuse me, can we get some autographs?" I said, "No, not right now, guys." And I'm trying. And one of the guys said, "You're not from the States." And he grabbed me on my shoulder, and I turned around and boom, he hits me right in the mouth.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I don't even want to tell you who was there. I had Batista there. I had Viscera there. I had Jack Doan, Chad Patton, Mike Chioda. These are the referees. Um, oh God, uh, I had a lot of guys there.
Yeah,
A lot of well, they wished that they would have never stopped us. Let's
right.
just put it. The next morning, because we had to call. They had to call the cops. The next morning, it says Birmingham martial arts team gets the SmackDown.
Oh God.
Yeah, they. Let me tell you, I these guys they really caught it. Johnny Laurinaitis was there. Oh gosh, a lot of the agents were there, and everybody was work. They were trying not to let this thing go further, but
Sure.
the boys weren't having it, and it was not a good night for them, and that was a funny one. That was a funny one.
Now, did you
When I
have
were
any downtime at all when you were overseas? Where you could kind of check things out, or was it business all the time?
It was business 90% of the time.
Okay.
We were in Australia, and we had a week, and I think this is when we set the record. And I was exhausted, and um, the boys wanted to go out, and so I went to the manager of the hotel. We were at the Crown Royal Hotel in Melbourne, and we were going to just the ticket sales were through the roof. And Rock says, "Listen, get everything situated. You go to bed." I was like, "Okay." I got other security there, and I told the manager, I said, "These guys are here to do a job. Please don't let them do this, this, and this." And that was basically it. That was my downtime. And then one day we were in Sydney, and Shawn Michaels, um, Sean Selman, and myself. We got a picture of it where we all went up and crossed the bridge at the top. That's like well, I made a fool of myself. I don't like heights.
Oh no.
So I crawled. I got to the top, and everybody's looking at me. Instead of this trip being like, what was it, 45 minutes? It was like an hour and a half or whatever.
Oh my gosh.
And then we took a picture of it. I've got the picture somewhere. Yeah, but we had some good downtime. When I was in Rome, a lot of us went to the Vatican. A lot of us went to the stadium, the Coliseum, excuse me. Um, when we were in Florence, we got a chance to go out and things of that nature. It was a family atmosphere.
Yeah.
I mean, when we were out, I was with SmackDown or Raw, there was gosh, I don't know if you remember Bill DeMott.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bill DeMott, he would get in the ring, and he would always challenge someone to jump over the rail. And he goes, "You jump over this rail, my security's gonna kick your ass." I'm like, "Bill, stop, please. Bill, don't do that."
Right.
And he
Not
looked at
tonight.
me like, yeah. Oh gosh, I thought I worked with some of the toughest, baddest people in the world in the New York City nightclubs. But let me tell you, when you meet guys like Jeff and Matt Hardy, uh, Paul London, and Johnny Morrison, and Brian Kendrick, that little guy, Rey Mysterio, still, and these guys are some of the most unbelievably just hard, tough people that you'll ever meet in your life. And I sit there, excuse me, I sit there and I'm like, it's it was just a blessing in my life because of the mere fact that what we were able to do as far as my family. And like I said, you know, we were able to do a lot more than you know I maybe would have, who knows? It's up in the air because I was doing okay. Actually, I was doing better than okay with the nightclubs,
Yeah.
but meeting Vince and that family, it took it to another level. And you know, what a family. I can't say anything about him. I mean, actually, one of the toughest matches that I ever saw was Kurt Angle and Shane Royal Rumble in New Jersey, where the glass wouldn't break.
Oh
That was
yes.
that was me off to the side. I was just sweating, and I'm hearing everything going on. With my, and they were like, you know, and Shane was like, "No, this glass is gonna break," and he
Broke it.
he went he went through it, and I was like, "Oh man!" I started wondering if I was gonna get fired.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. Never saw anything like that before, you know?
Oh no, and you won't either after that. And then
Yeah.
you had gosh, Eddie Guerrero and J, uh, JBL. Oh my God,
A lot of blood loss there.
yeah, yeah. That was a match that was a match I was scared
Hmm.
of because they had the barbed wire match. They had uh, I don't know. The matches just kept escalating, and then when we went to El Paso, and I was like, we're not going to get out of here. And they just professionals, just boom, boom, boom. I loved Eddie Guerrero. God rest his soul. He was when I got sick. That was part of the problem. I had a stroke in 2005, and they told me that I was never going to walk or talk correctly again. And that was on July the 28th, 2005, and we were on our way to the Philippines. Well, I was in the hospital for 2 months about and I couldn't move, couldn't talk, couldn't do anything. The boys put together a fund for me and sent it, and it was just that's what I mean about family. They WWE is still paying me, and they put together a fund and sent it to me. And I'm like, wow. And then one morning I was in the hospital, and I sat up and I was like, oh, okay. And I spun around and I stood up, put one foot in front of the other, and I started walking down the hall. Nurse goes, Mr. Tillis, where are you going? I said, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Wow.
They let me go a week later. 2 weeks after that, I was on a plane on my way to Minneapolis,
Right
Minnesota.
back into it.
And Eddie saw me coming out of the airport and Jimmy! And I jumped in the car with him. He's, man, we were praying for you and da 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 da. And the next day he passed.
Oh, it was the next day. Wow.
It was the next day. It's the next day. Yeah,
Man.
that was something. That was probably one of the roughest things. I missed a lot of family funerals. But that was rough.
Yeah, horrible. So young and, such a bright future, still
Oh,
had so much in him.
ah, it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
He had a beautiful career, beautiful family.
And you mentioned the Undertaker. You had a great relationship with the Undertaker.
Yes.
How did that start? How did you guys first link up and kind of talk about some of your
Well,
stories over the years?
from what I heard, it was Undertaker that told Ann that we needed security on the road, and that maybe now this is what I'd heard. And maybe I should ask him. I don't know if that, but Taker was. See, let me give you a backdrop.
Yeah.
When I first got hired, they wanted me to just do the security for The Rock and do the security backstage, and all my guys would do this, that, and the other. And then I started enforcing the back curtains and security on the sides and really enforcing it. And I said, you know what? Love Rock. Love these guys. I'm going to do it for everybody, not just. And so I would petition of parking, which they already had, but I made sure I would get to house shows 2 hours early, just to make sure that everything was done, and we had, had it the way I wanted it. Because I used to tell people, don't worry about doing it the right way. Do it the way Jimmy wants it. That's it. And that was, so we did that, and then it just came down one night. Taker tore the roof off of the house, and I think it was WrestleMania. Gosh, I don't know which one it was, but I think no, he didn't wrestle Brock. He wrestled somebody else, and it was. And I just wanted to make sure that he had coat, towel, whatever he needed backstage. If he wanted his family backstage, I made sure of that, and it just it just kept on growing after that, to the point where one time we were in Australia, and they wouldn't let us in a club in Sydney.
Hmm.
I was like, "What do you mean?" So the bouncer, head bouncer, he's like, "Listen, man," he goes, "nobody in here, none of my bouncers can stop any of you guys if you guys have a problem. I said, they're not going to have a problem. These are celebrities." He goes, "Yeah, no, I can't do it." I was like, "Just so happens there's a bar at the corner, and and it's empty." And the owner goes, "You can come on down here." Well, we went down there. The bar up the street got emptied out because we were down at the end of the corner,
Yeah.
and I'm outside doing security now. I'm like, yes, no, 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 yeah, come, and
Right.
and by the end, once it was all over, the WWE bill, Taker took care of it.
Wow. Okay.
That's what I said. That's what I said. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, yeah, and it wasn't a small bill.
Sure.
And
I can imagine.
yeah, and I was like, wow, you know, and he just reinforced the fact that you treat all the guys the same way, and you get a lot further. And that's how it was with me. I wasn't just out at the ringside when the main matches were on. No, I saw match 1 through 9 treated the same way. If somebody jumped in at that round, first match or whatever the case may be, I handled it the same way I would, because there was one thing that I, first of all, it was my name on it. Anybody got in, oh, that was Jimmy Tillis, and Jimmy Tillis was there. And so I never wanted anybody to say, oh, he couldn't do it or whatnot. Only one time I was slow was when the kid jumped in the ring and pushed the thing out from underneath Eddie Guerrero. And I didn't know what Eddie was going to do, because he squared up and and then we got the kid out. But that was how I was making my living at that point, and it was personal to me, and making sure that all the guys were okay after each match. That was one of those things, and I would always be there when Taker got done with the main event, especially WrestleMania. Boom, boom, boom. Get him in his car and get him out of there.
Hmm.
And we just grew. I don't even know how to say it. He's just a friend. He's
Special
just a
bond.
good friend. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Now,
hmm
for fans who are curious, how the security works, obviously you've touched on a lot of different aspects of it, but kind of walk us through, what time is call time for you as security? What time do you have to show up to those arenas? And what are your actual responsibilities? What's the order of things that you do?
One of the things that were for me when I got into it, it was on TV days. I was there to make sure that Mr. McMahon and everybody, the writers, agents, all got in. Okay, that's between 9 and 10 o'clock. So my call time was always 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
I get there 8 o'clock, make sure everything was blocked off, make sure the guard is there, and when they got there, got them in, showed them exactly what room they were in. But by this time, we had been there so long, they already knew exactly. The rooms never changed, because you had John D'Amico, you had Sean Selman, you had all the guys that had been there much longer than I was. And you had, these guys, and they were pretty precise. My job was make sure nobody did anything stupid. And, hey, how you doing, Virgil? That was when I, calm it down, and then I get their head of security, and do me a favor, move him, and that's all.
Yeah.
It's about having the control of backstage. Because when you don't have the control of backstage, people are going to do anything. And I got a funny story to tell you after this.
Yeah.
But it was the boys first. Make sure their dressing room was clean, everything, and make sure that when they got there, they knew exactly where to go. Uh, the agents, Mr. McMahon and family, um, uh, just, just making sure that everything ran smooth. That was my whole thing. Didn't want to, because I was a big thing where no, that's not supposed to be like that.
Right. Right.
you know.
Now, was it a
But
little bit different for house shows? Because obviously no Vince.
house shows, no,
No.
no, I was always there 2 hours early.
Okay.
Um, Sometimes, we would get into a good card game. Back when it was, like I said, more family. We sit there and play some Beal, and you walk in the room, play, and all the guys that wanted to play Beal would get up and play. Some guys would be playing gin, and every once in a while, you get to an area because it's a rough area. When I say rough area, that those fans are very aggressive. You know that they're going to come out and they're going to try their best to get backstage. Some of the security are fans, and they want to take their pictures, and so I get there early for those.
Hmm.
But that was basically it.
Yeah.
You know.
When it comes to the security credentials over the years, do you have any keepsakes? Do you have any of those passes still to this day? And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I just can't find them. And it's funny, I looked around, but I did find this. Now, I want you to take a look at this, and everybody's going to say, no, okay. See that black guy right there?
Oh, yes.
That's me.
All right. Very nice.
That's WrestleMania 23.
Wow.
Cena won the championship from Shawn Michaels.
Yep.
And he's got it.
Yep, there it is.
And this is the same one where a guy jumped into the ring right before the match. And he was from England. And as soon as he got in, he was trying to strip. And when he stripped, I speared him and went down, dragged him out of the ring. Well, he went to jail, and they took his passport away. I don't even know if he can come back down.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was my next question. When somebody jumps the barricade, what is the exact protocol for something like that?
Well, back when I started, fans were jumping all the time.
Okay.
All the time. My first jumper was in Canada, and we were up by Stu Hart, that area.
Yep.
I forget the name of it.
Calgary, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And kid jumped, and I grabbed him, and he gave a little tussle. And so I tried to make his hand touch the back of his head. And so I'm walking backstage, and Godfather and D'Lo Brown were there. They're like, hey, man, take it easy. You're going to break his arm. Nah, he shouldn't have got around here. Nah, he's like, duh. And Fit was the guy. Fit, he would give me your ticket. So they couldn't go out and come back in a lot of times. And that was the new thing, because Fit would work ringside with me as well sometimes, especially on the cage matches, because we were in London and these kids jumped over and started climbing up the rail.
Wow. Okay.
So the boys in the ring stopped. Okay.
Yeah.
Fit and I were waiting on the outside.
Rather go back in,
Yeah. It was a bad choice for them, and we just sat there. Yeah, but I've gotten a few where I've been okay. You could have done that a little bit easier, and it really depends on their their aggression, how bad they want to get in. One time I was in Arkansas, and a guy came in the ring. I'll never forget it. It was Hurricane. was in the ring, and the kid slid in the ring. I slid in and took a swing, and you know, and I woke him up, and we walked him out of down the hall. Started going in his pockets. Kid had drugs. He had a razor blade, and he went to jail.
Wow.
He went to jail. Yeah, because he. I mean, when you have that much of drugs on you, you know.
Yeah.
And again, you know, this is what these guys do for a living. My living is to make sure that they don't get messed with. And like I said, I would take it personal. It was one of those things where, okay, you know what, you're really going to test me. And then they had this one where, beat up the security, and you get to a contract. And guys are literally taking that seriously, and I was like, dude, this is not going to be good for you.
Right. Yeah. Was there ever an incident where it just kind of got out of hand? Maybe there was more than one fan or something that came over and you just, trying to keep control, but it was just, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah. It was.
it seems like you guys are clockwork. I mean, when somebody comes over, you get them right away, but there has to be an incident where they went the other
There
way.
was. We were. I think it was when they bought ECW,
Okay.
and we were in. I don't know if it was Philadelphia or Boston, and these kids just started throwing stuff, just chew, chew, chew. And as they're throwing it, I'm hopping over the rail and I'm grabbing them, and they're fighting with me, and I'm taking them out and handing them next security. And then one kid jumped over the rail. I snatch him up. I threw him back over the rail, and the guy that was there, he was a little bit older than me at the time, and he's like, he's already winded from the last guy, and
Right.
I'm like, get him out of here, just get him out, you know. But the big one was when it was me and Fit, and those three kids came over there. It was like three or four of them. And we were in. I don't know if we were in London or if we were in Wales, but they came over, and the boys stopped wrestling. I used to sit right at the lip, right here. Fit would sit in the chair right there. They came over this way and hit the fence. And the boys stopped and looked at them. And me and Fit were and we waited for them to come down. They came down peacefully.
Yeah.
They didn't fight or anything. Again, walked them backstage, took their tickets, and off they went. There have
Mm.
been some guys that have come over and wanted to fight. One guy jumped over the rail. We were in Vegas. I'll never forget it because it used to be on the highlight.
Okay.
And he went to hit Jericho. And when he hit Jericho, I speared him, and Jericho went after him too. And I was like, I got him, I got him, and we dragged him right out. And but it was, when they saw, I wasn't I wasn't very nimble, but I was quicker than they thought I was.
Right.
And
Right.
I was very proud that, you know, if you did get in the ring, you didn't get to the boys because I was coming in the same side or opposite side, and that was, and the thing about it was, I watched the fans. I never watched WWF when I was a kid. I played high school and college football. Never watched it when I was home. But when I finally got the job, it was just it was the hardest dance that you could ever imagine. And when I would come home, I would tell everybody. One guy goes, "Oh, I can do that." I'm like, "No, you can't." I said, I told him, I said, "You can't do that." I said, "Jeff Hardy does a back jump and lands on his back constantly."
Yeah.
Oh, during the match? No, I said, he's done that 15, 20 times before the show. He's getting his stuff. Seeing what he wants to do. They're like, get it. No, I kid you not. I
Yeah.
said, you're not going to jump 40 feet into 3 or 4 inches worth of foam. That's not going to happen.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. What are some of your memories of Eddie Guerrero behind the scenes?
Oh, gosh.
Anything that stands out?
And it was just, around me, he was just a really peaceful guy, very intense, very intense. He always wanted one. He always wanted that match, whatever match it was, whether it be with Kurt Angle or JBL. He always wanted it to be perfect, and I think that was that was the whole thing with Eddie, with me. I mean, he was just he was just a gentleman, you know. Um, Back then, let's see, I was with. I would be doing a lot of stuff with. Um, a lot of times in the beginning, because this was the beginning, I would come home and still go to the clubs and do things like that. And and then as my schedule picked up, then we fired all those people. Then my schedule came to where I had to let the clubs go,
Mm.
and you know, and that's where. But Eddie, he was more in contact with Jimmy Newman. Him and Jimmy were really close.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, late 90s for you, you're starting with the company there, mid to late 90s. Did you have any interactions with the late Owen Hart?
No,
Okay.
no. I let's see. No, I never met him. I met Brett, um, and a lot of their family, but I never met Owen Hart.
Okay.
It's a shame too. It seems like he was it seemed like he was one of those guys.
Like Eddie. I mean, everybody loved him.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, what would you say has been the greatest challenge for you within the industry?
Within the security industry,
Yeah.
oh gosh, the greatest challenge for me back in those days, coming up in New York City, coming from a small town in New Jersey. Um, I don't, you know, security wise, not much. You got to remember, I was blessed to have parents that worked their asses off so I could go to not one of the number one schools in the country, but the number one school, public school in the country, um, in Milburn High School. Um, I was one of three black students in my school my senior year. Uh, Vince's gang, these guys were um, my best friends, my brothers, before I knew about fraternities and things of that nature. And they were always, there for me, even if somebody were to, you know, try and say something bad about me. Those guys always had my back. So, security wise, I didn't really face anything because, I had already had that confidence in me that I wasn't going to let anything bring me down, you know. And I keep that confidence even now, as I'm older and, I think I'm much wiser, but, I just know that I'm blessed because, you know, um, Milburn High School was some school.
Yeah.
And I mean, John C. McGinley comes from there. He's the gentleman that wrote Scrubs, and he stars in it. He was actually the first person to talk to me at Milburn when I got
Really?
there. Yep,
Wow. Okay.
yeah. He said, "Hey, kid, you looking to sit somewhere? He goes, come sit with me." And that was it. I was like, "Okay."
You're in.
Yeah, yeah. Uh,
Now, on the flip side of that, what was the most rewarding for you?
the most rewarding. Oh gosh, there were so many. There were so many things that were rewarding. The fellowship and the camaraderie, um, the uh, the genuine respect and love that we gave. I'm still considered WWE family. I'm
Oh
still
yeah.
considered, uh, and I sit there and I take it proudly because I had my 20-year wedding anniversary there. Hold on, my grandson's upset. I had my 20-year wedding anniversary, and I invited a gentleman by the name of Ed Cohen. Uh, oh gosh, Mike Kaufman, Sally Pasciuto, uh, Michelle Colucci, Tom Colucci, um, Ann Russo, Gordon. Uh, oh gosh, who else? Stephanie and Triple H, and I invited like a ton of them, and most of them came.
Wow.
Most of them came to my 20-year wedding anniversary, and you know, and Stephanie and Triple H, they gave me this huge crystal ball, from Tiffany's, and I was like, wow, yeah, nice card would have been okay, but you
Yeah.
know, it was the love that it was, and it that they made everybody feel like family. That was the biggest reward. I got a funny story to tell you.
Yeah.
Booker T, great guy. I beat him in golf. He beat me 100 times, but I beat him the first time, so that's what all that matters. But anyway, he got there, and I forget when he got there. I think they got there around when right before we went public, and or right after we went public. I'm not sure, but they're telling me the storyline. I'm like, okay, what's going on? And Mr. Briscoe goes, all right, Jimmy, what we want you to do is we want you to be on the outside of the ring, taking care of whatever. And Booker's going to come over where you were going to be. And I said, okay. Then what? He goes, we want you to see it. We want you to jump over. And then we want you to start wrestling with Booker. I said, wrestle with Booker? I'm not wrestling. What is that? He goes, all right, well, just go jump over and distract him. I said, well, it starts to go. The match starts to hit, and I think Stone Cold's in the ring, but I see a kid, and I see this kid, and he's jumping up and down like he wants to jump over the rail. And I hear Mr. Briscoe, Jimmy, go now, now. And I'm watching this kid, and I'm like, oh shucks. And I go, and by this time I'm late. Booker hits me with a shot. Boom! I land on my face. We were in Tennessee. Fans are going, 18,000 fans going nuts. I'm laying there, and I hear, Jimmy, are you okay?
Uh-oh. That's not a good sign.
Jimmy. Uh, I think it was Larry Heck or Chris Brennan. I forget which one. They the medical staff, and they're good friends of mine. They roll me over, and I'm like, no, no, no. All right. And then, now I hear the fans again. I run backstage. My nose is busted. Everybody, yeah, Book, way to go, Book, way to... He comes down the stairs from Gorilla. I said, hey. He goes, yeah. He goes, oh, man, did I do that to you? I said, yeah, I'm Jimmy Tillis, man. Please don't ever hit me that hard again.
You felt that one.
Oh, yeah. We were friends every day after that. Him and his wife, Shamel. Oh, let me tell you, it's the people that I met that were part of my life with the WWF WWE that was just unreal. It really was.
What were your interactions like with Vince McMahon over the years?
Well, he and I were born on the same day,
Uh,
and it was very cordial until one day one day he had the ran down from Gorilla during a match. I think it was Batista and Cena, and he tore both his quads.
oh, yes. Yeah.
He tore both his quads. Now, mind you, he got in the ring, sat in the corner. Okay, then he walks back up. Some of the boys help him back up. We go to get. He goes, Jimmy, I want you to come with me. And we're going to his surgeon the next day. So I'm on his plane, and I'm holding his legs. And Mrs. McMahon was there. He was there, and a couple other people. And he's laughing and joking. And he says something funny. And I dropped his legs. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, no.
If he could walk, he'd probably put his foot up my ass.
Right.
I was like, oh,
So he wasn't in. It was. I mean, he's obviously just a tough guy, but
yeah,
he wasn't showing the pain.
not whatsoever,
Yeah,
not whatsoever. And that was, and I was there when he fell off the cage. I, he is just him and. Let me tell you, that whole family. I remember sitting there when Stephanie smacked Mrs. McMahon. I thought Mrs. McMahon was going to go out for the count. She just, and I was like, oh my God, she just hit her like nobody's business.
yeah.
But yeah,
Any
yeah, they,
memories with Shane over the years?
yeah. Shane and I would talk. I used to travel with the Dudleys for a while, and so did he. And they treated him like he was one of the boys. He would have to fix the ring and do this, that, and the other. And we were coming down 95, and Devon and Bubba are on him, and I'm like, oh my God, this he owns the company.
Right.
They didn't care. They were like, and he's giving it right back to him, man. And it's funny now because I think about stuff like that, and I think about where it was when I started, and now I look, and every time I turn on the TV, Batista is one of my favorite actors. I just saw The Wrecking Crew, great movie. Uh, God, Rock. I've seen most everything that he's got out except for this one Smash Machine. I haven't seen that yet. Cena, hilarious. He's like the comedian that you never thought he was. And I sit there and Randy Orton's got a couple things out. Edge has got not Edge. Edge. Edge has got the Viking movies that are out and things of that nature. When I see their names, and I sit there and I watch them, I'm like, yeah, these guys are, they're very impressive. But Batista, he's turned out to be one of my favorites. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, of course, I got Denzel and a couple other guys ahead of him, but he's up there.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
up
But
there.
DC's got a vast body of work. He can kind of
Yeah,
do it all.
yeah, yeah, and I'm really impressed. So
Another
yeah,
employee, long time with World Wrestling Entertainment, the late great Tim White. Any memories with Tim?
yeah, yeah. Me and Tim, we had fun. I remember we went to Lima, Peru. This is a funny story, and something had happened, and we had to refuel in Lima, and when we refueled, we were supposed to refuel, and get on the plane once we were done. Well, we get to the plane, and they hadn't refueled us, and it was part of the contract. So Tim goes, Jimmy, explain to this guy. And I said, you guys were supposed to do this, that, and the other. And he goes, yeah, well, it didn't happen. I said, oh, okay. I said, all right. I said, Timmy, I said, how much is it? And they told me the price. I said, okay, Timmy, give him. And I said, I asked the guy, I said, let me have your license. He said, what? I said, let me have your license. So he hands me his license. I'm looking at him. I said, okay. I take a picture of it. I said, here. He says, what's that for? I said, if this plane is not fueled, I said, I'm going to stay and I'm going to come back and I'm going to get our $5,000 back. Timmy, are you out of your mind? Oh, Timmy, he was always in charge of the money, and he'd be like, Jimmy, what else are you going to buy? Especially when we were in Africa. I was buying all kinds of things in Africa. So it
Yeah.
was like, yeah, he's a good man.
How about
Good
referee
man.
Mike Chioda? Any memories with Mike?
Yeah, me and Mike, we used to ride together. As you can see, I've rode with a lot of people,
Yeah, yes, you have.
and that's how it was. Who's going this way? Me and Mike, we were a couple of times. Mike and I were in. We got stopped right outside of Macon, Georgia, and it was a speed trap. 55, hit the hill, come down 35. Cops sitting right there. I pull over. Doggone it. This guy gets out. He gets up to the car and he looks at me and he says, "Boy, do you know how fast you was going?" And I went off. It was like I went to another level. Tillis, he's gonna arrest. I was like, "Don't you ever call me a boy. I don't care where we are." Da 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 da. I Kill was like, "Oh God, we're going to jail."
Oh,
uh,
you stood up for yourself, you know?
yeah, yeah. That's one of those sore spots.
Yeah.
But it was just me and Kyoto. We had fun. We had
Yeah.
fun.
And you're
Yeah.
going from arena to arena all these years. Did you have favorite arenas over the years?
Yes. Staples Center.
Ah, LA.
Yes.
Yep.
Staples Center was great. Every once in a while, I'd run into Kobe and Shaq. I ran into Shaq. I ran into Shaq at in Scranton, Pennsylvania, when he was with Cleveland. He gave me an autograph of his Cleveland jersey.
Nice.
But Staples Center, they had a young lady there, who was operations manager, and she was fantastic. I think her name was Julie, and we would text from time to time, and I see you're coming. Yeah, I'll be there, and um, I met Arnold Schwarzenegger there. Oh gosh, I met so many people backstage there at that one. And that was probably the biggest thing.
Hmm. That was
Getting
actually
to
my next question was the celebrity part of
oh,
it. Continue though. Go ahead.
well, that was the thing. The funniest story meeting a celebrity. I met Snoop,
Oh yes.
and we were doing a show. Snoop was in the show, and he had his own dressing room, and we were in Pennsylvania. I think it was Scranton as well. And we went, and somebody told me, they said, "Go inside and get Snoop." I go walking in the room, and the room's full of smoke. I was like, "Snoop, they're ready for you back." "Yo, all right, man, I'll be right." And I come out, and it hit me that hard. I couldn't do the show. Number one, fell in love with cheesecake, and that was it.
In catering for the rest of the night, right?
Oh, the whole night. And then one of the other favorite one, I was backstage. We were in Pittsburgh, and I remember exactly when this was. It was 2003, and Steelers had just gotten this rookie quarterback, and comes backstage with his security, and I go, "Excuse me, guys, you can't be backstage." And the security, this guy, big guy, his name's Ed Joyner. He was captain of the uh, uh, Pennsylvania State Troopers. He's like, "Yo, man, this is Ben Roethlisberger." I was like, "Yeah, but this is Vince's backstage right now." He says, "Man, this is Ben." I said, "My man, listen, you can't be back here." And as soon as Mr. McMahon walks up behind me, he goes, "Jimmy, I think they're okay." Ben looks at me and goes, "I love that guy." And then Ben got called to the studio some years later to do a commercial for us,
Hmm.
and he gets there, and they asked him to say, they were like, what's some of the most memorable things that yeah, he goes, "Your security, Jimmy Tillis, one day he stopped me and my security backstage, was going to throw us out. I love that guy." I had never been to a professional football game, and Ed calls me up and goes, "Ben said to come on down. He's playing your team." And I said, "Oh, great." He sent me tickets for the Jets playing the Steelers. And I think they beat them like 43-10 or something like that. And then I was like, "Okay." So I have my Steelers stuff here. He goes, go backstage. He goes, "Go back to, where the players come out." So I said, "Okay." Go back there, and I'm sitting, I'm waiting. And, I, "Hey, this, that, and that." One girl goes, I said, "Hi, how you doing?" She ignores me. And then I hear, "Jim Tillis, Jim Tillis." "Yeah, that's me." And then you hear, "Ben, Ben, Ben." I go back there. Ben looks at me, "Jimmy Tillis." And, he's,
He'll never forget it, I'm sure, you know?
oh, man. Those two were two of the best ever. Yeah.
So the respect that you have for all these athletes and seeing them up close in person, doing their thing, for all these years, if you had to put together a Mount Rushmore, who would your Mount Rushmore be? The top four that you've experienced live?
Rock, Cena, Triple H, and Undertaker.
Hmm. Yeah, doesn't get much better than that.
No,
Yeah,
no, no, it doesn't. When you talk about the body of work that they've done, I mean, I was in Philly. I had to pick Rock up at the airport. He wasn't supposed to be on the card, and it was like a riot when you hear his music. When he came down, the building started to shake, and I was like, you had about 20,000 people in there, and Cena with literally becoming one of maybe those two or three that are really sports entertainment icons now. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. Undertaker, undefeated in WrestleMania up until I think he lost to Brock. I wasn't there that year, but I think it was in New Jersey, and I was doing the security outside for another security company, and I literally teared up, because he had lost, and then gosh, you get Triple H, and just his how he just came up through. I mean, it doesn't get any better.
yeah,
Those guys are those guys are. It's going to be hard to pass those guys, and I can say that I was there.
yeah.
I was there. I haven't, and I'm being very biased now when I tell you that I haven't watched a show since I left.
Wow.
Not one.
Okay.
Not one. Number one, it brings back too many memories. Every once in a while, I'll see something on LinkedIn or something. They'll go, "Oh, Jimmy wouldn't have let that happen," or Jimmy Tillis and Jimmy Noonan wouldn't have let that happen. When it's all said and done, it's it's not what I wouldn't let happen. It's just that I paid more attention. I make sure that it didn't happen in the beginning.
Right.
And, that was my whole thing. But what was on other people's minds, I
Yeah.
don't know.
And you
Yeah.
mentioned inviting, several people to the 20th anniversary of your wedding. Ed Cohen, you mentioned. Any
Yes.
memories of Ed that you could share?
Oh my God, anything. Ed was Ed was like, Jimmy, whatever you need. Whatever you need. You need this, you need that. I was like, Ed, I'm pretty nuts and bolts type of guy. Wasn't into the technology of it all at that time and whatnot. I was into the face to face. Even to this day, I'm still into, let's sit down and talk. I'm not going to do a whole lot of stuff online. But Ed he was just so like, hey, how's it going, man? He really, you know, those people that I mentioned, they really made me feel welcome. It
Yeah.
wasn't that I was a bouncer because I was, but I controlled a lot of people. I controlled on a weekend 600 guys or more, and if one of those guys was out of place, Gerard wanted to know about it. So I was used to, and Gerard didn't micromanage me, and neither did anybody at WWE. But Ed just made you feel so, hey man, it's so good to see you. He would give you, and Mike Kaufman, same thing, smile. And Rich had his ups and downs moments. And, at the end, he and I started to drift apart, and I think a lot of that had to, be with a lot of things. I knew he was going to make a change, and I was already prepared for it, and that's why he started to drift apart. But even he in the beginning was cool. Sally Pasciuto, Liz DeFabio, uh, uh,
You mentioned
uh,
Thomas Carlucci.
oh God, oh, you can't forget Donna Goldsmith. Donna Goldsmith, I think they rated her as the second most powerful woman in sports entertainment. She would whenever it was like some people can really look down on you.
Yeah.
Most people never did. And that was the cool thing, And again, I treated them with respect. And Ann Russo Gordon, loved her,
Yeah.
loved her. Michelle Carlucci, loved her. Gosh, yeah, there were so many of them there. And these are the people behind the scenes. These are the people, that were just as important in the success that I had than the boys.
Yeah. And
You
there's
know,
another gentleman who does security. I think he's there now. You often see him with Triple H and Stephanie, and I think he was there when you were there.
yeah, Jim Kelly.
Jim Kelly. Okay, I was curious
Yeah,
what his name was. All right,
yeah,
Jim Kelly.
yeah. I trained Jim, and he was Governor Pataki's security.
Okay.
He was with the state police. He came aboard part time in 2003, and then I don't know if it was my health getting involved or whatever the case may be. Yeah, he had bigger credentials than I did. Like I said, I was just known as security company and things of that nature. And I guess Rich tried to stay loyal to that about as much as he could. But Jim is a good man. I tried to get in contact with him. Getting in contact with him, I could get in contact with the president quicker than I can get in contact with him.
Yeah, yeah. Some people are like that. It's tough. I know.
Yeah, but he's a good man. He's a good man. He's been there a
Another
while now.
he what?
He's been there a while now.
Yeah, yeah, because he was there when you were there. So,
Yeah.
how long would you say he was there? When do you think he started?
Jim's been there 23 years.
Okay, wow.
Yeah.
All right.
But see, Jim, I don't see Jim overseas much. You know, he's uh, he's pretty much with Stephanie and Triple H
Yeah.
and their children. Yeah.
Okay.
You know.
Makes
Uh,
sense. Another longtime employee. Unfortunately, we lost him a
yeah.
few years ago. Howard Finkel. Any
Yes.
memories of the Fink?
Howard Finkel was great. Howard was great. Howard was again. You know, it's like you can draw a line between those people that made you feel welcomed.
Yeah.
And Howard always had a kind word. He always wanted to know how I was doing. When I came back after my stroke, he always, Jimmy, anything you need? Howard, you're the man, you know? I mean, he was just, it was sad when I saw that, we lost another gentleman, Jim Shank. Jim
Right.
was
Yes.
technical. Jim, another, you know why everybody smiled? Because everybody did smile. It was just one of those things. Everybody smiled because it was such a great job. It wasn't like work. If you can find something like that,
Yeah.
hold on to it. Because when you can find something that when you get up, you're excited to go to, and you don't have to keep reinventing yourself. That's what it was,
Yeah.
you know. But Howard, wow, yeah,
So when it comes to WrestleMania, the biggest show, the grandest stage, what does that mean to you as security? You got WrestleMania next. What does that mean? How does that differ from anything else? Obviously, it's a grander show.
it's a grander show. And when I first started, I had my hands more into it as far as knowing how the security was, how much security, what type of security. It's like the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
You're getting people from all over the world. When we would do it in small arenas, that would concern me. We did a WrestleMania in Chicago. That concerned me. We did one at Madison Square Garden. When it's small, you know, I don't I don't know how to express it. It just makes me feel like you're taking this massive event and you're putting it into a building that holds 20,000 people, 25,000 people. It's something is bound to erupt. And when it doesn't, you're that much more thankful. But I loved it when we were at when we were outdoors. When we were outdoors, we were in Florida. I forget. I think it was WrestleMania 25, and I think it was also in 20. I forget. But we were outside. It was um, Mayweather and Big Show,
Yeah.
and that was, you know, it just looked so much better outside. It just looked, it was like, it was just a lot better. I feel, and Let me tell you something. Mayweather can take a shot.
Yeah.
Oh my God. He took like 4 or 5 of those. I did, and Big Show hit me in the chest once,
Right.
and I was like, "Don't ever do that again."
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
he took like 4 or 5. Mayweather's grandmother was coming over the rail. I was like, and oh please,
Yeah.
Mayweather was good people too. Him and his whole crew, they were great.
Yeah.
They were great.
Things go sour. Things get out of hand. Just a fantasy, scenario here. Who are the 4 guys that you're taking with you into the brawl?
Oh, Mark Henry, Ron, uh, Ron Simmons, uh, The Rock, and Big Show.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched Mark Henry rip a door off its hinges, a locker door. They had dropped their key and forgot the combination to the key was on the lock, and and we were prying it open, and Arn Anderson, Mark Henry had just come in from lifting. I think he was working on one side of the building, and he goes, uh, Ron goes, I mean Arn goes, Mark, can you open that thing? He reaches in, rips this part of the thing comes off too, and everybody stood there with their mouths wide open, like, "Oh my God, did he just
Unbelievable.
do that?" With not one piece of effort, and he could dunk a basketball.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's true.
Yeah, because in Philly, they had a basketball court in the back,
Yep.
you know, and he could go up there and dunk. I was like,
Yeah.
"This is ridiculous."
Yeah. He's bragged about that before. I think they have footage of that, of Mark dunking a basketball. So it's not surprising. I mean,
No,
you know,
all that power. Are you
yeah.
kidding me? Nah.
Now, when it comes to the traveling, how do you take care of your body? How do you stay in shape when you're doing all of this traveling? Did you have a certain regimen?
I was the worst on regiment. My regiment was always be on time. Being on time with me was always being there half hour early. Uh, I'll tell you who had a regiment that I admired, like unbelievable, and that was because I would eat. I was a junk food eater. Um, I would get a bucket of chicken and go to my room, eat that, go to bed. But John Cena, one night we were in Canada, and we were out and literally just sitting, laughing, joking, talking. There's a bunch of us. I went somewhere. I come back. It's like 6 in the morning. Cena's in the weight room, squatting like 500 pounds. And I'm sitting there. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
that was determination.
Yeah.
That's why he's on that Mount Rushmore. I mean,
Yeah.
that things like that you're always impressed by,
Right.
And Cena was one of those guys that just, you know.
Yeah.
But me, nah, you know, I no, not at all.
What would you say has been the best piece of advice that you'd ever received?
The best piece of advice that I ever received was always to make sure you give thanks to God for everything that He has given you and how He's kept you from all hurt, harm, and danger. Because if it hadn't been for WWE, I'd have been on Windows in the World at the trades when they flew it into the towers.
Oh, wow. Wow.
I was the head of security for Windows in the World, which is in the World Trade Center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. You just, you never know. You never know how things are going
Yeah.
to go. And like you said, God works in mysterious ways. So
Yeah.
looking
Yeah.
out for you.
Yeah. And he has too. Look at me. I've had my share of spankings.
Yeah, and you're still here to talk about it, though, and that's
Yeah,
what's important, right?
that's the key. That's the
Yeah,
key to stay
you've
blessed.
you've lived through it. And what advice do you have for somebody that's looking to maybe get into the world of security?
Do all that you can as far as your body's concerned. Make sure that you go through the arts. Make sure that you take weapons training. Make sure, and not just handgun training. There's knife training. There's stick fighting. Um, Gun training is always possible. Good though. Make sure that you Wing Chun, Taekwondo. Taekwondo's a little too many kicks. I would stay with Wing Chun and Krav Maga. Stay in shape. Get your rest. Don't let things worry you. Um, because when you let things worry you, it's only going to reflect on your body. You know, that's probably the most that I can tell somebody. And always be ready.
Yeah.
Be ready. Be ready. Like I was talking to my son the other day, and he's actually been trying to get a job with WWE.
Mm.
And I told him, I said, "Hey, if they need you, they call you. Then they know that you're looking." And the next day, he got a job doing a movie. And then uh, right after that, he got a job doing another movie. And so, that this is what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And uh, so you know,
All the
and
wonderful experiences that you've had, not only in security, even in WWE. If you had to pick one, what would that number one moment be? Just your very best memory or whatever it may be.
that's a hard one because there's so many. Again, I met Aretha Franklin. Um, who my father used to play for. Um, Meeting The Rock, meeting Undertaker, meeting Triple H, meeting all those guys.
Yeah.
That I guess. And once they saw that I was serious, knew that I wasn't there for the bullshit. They were, you know. But number one, wow, I don't know. Uh, there's just you
Just too
know
much.
just too much. Yeah, there's so many blessings. You know,
Yeah.
no.
And in closing, Jimmy, fast forward many years from now, you look back at your career as a whole. How do you want to be remembered? What do you want your legacy to be?
I would like for people to always think of me as being a fair person. You know, I didn't kick people when they were down. Tried to help somebody get to their feet. Um, that's how I'd like to be remembered.
Yeah.
I'd like to be remembered as a person that didn't let fear conquer him. You know,
Yeah.
I go by the thing. Not afraid of anything. I go by. There's some things I know I'm not going to win, but don't be afraid of it.
Right.
God didn't give us the installment of fear. You know,
Well, thank you for lending your expertise and all your contributions within the world of security, but the world of professional wrestling as well. And thank you so much for being here, Jimmy. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to talk
Joe.
about it.
Joe, thank you so much, man. You don't know how excited I was. I was like, and I'm sitting there like, oh man, you were great. Thank
Yeah,
you
no,
very much.
it's been my pleasure. For the great Jimmy Tillis, I'm Joseph Bruen, and this has been the All Access Entertainment Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave your comments. Love to hear from you, the fans, what you thought of this interview, what you'd like to see on the next one, and we will see you all next time. Jimmy, thank you again.
Thank you. Take care.